Welcome back to our chilling series exploring the haunted corners of American history, where the scars of human suffering continue to bleed into the present. In this fourth installment of Most Haunted Hospital in America, we delve deeper into one of the nation's most infamous institutions, a place that was once a sanctuary for healing but now stands as a monument to despair and supernatural unrest. From shadowy corridors to abandoned operating rooms, these hospitals bear witness to countless untold stories of pain, loss, and sacrifice. Yet, they are not merely relics of medicine, they are places where the echoes of tragedy refuse to fade, where the spirits of patients and staff linger, tethered to the halls by unresolved anguish. Hospitals, by their very nature, exist on the threshold between life and death, hope and despair, science and the inexplicable. This particular hospital, however, transcends the ordinary bounds of medical history. It is a place steeped in tragedy, its walls imbued with tales too painful to forget. Over decades, it has become a magnet for paranormal investigators, urban explorers, and thrill-seekers alike. But many who dare to cross its threshold leave shaken, their minds imprinted with memories they cannot explain. In this episode, we'll journey through the dimly lit corridors of this forsaken hospital, uncovering haunting tales of unspeakable sorrow, unexplained phenomena, and encounters that defy logic. We'll peer into the shadowy depths of patient wards where spectral figures roam, explore eerie basements where experiments may have gone horribly wrong, and tread cautiously through abandoned wings teeming with restless spirits. Along the way, we'll hear first-hand accounts from witnesses brave enough to confront the unknown, examine chilling evidence captured by paranormal investigators, and unravel the tragic histories that give rise to these hauntings. So dim the lights, keep your ears sharp, and prepare yourself for a descent into the macabre. As we step into the haunted heart of this decrepit institution, remember, sometimes, the most terrifying truths lie just beyond the veil, and once you cross it, there's no turning back. The origins of despair, a history steeped in tragedy nestled on the outskirts of a small town in the Rust Belt, the Waverly Hills Sanatorium, or what remains of it, stands as a grim testament to humanity's struggle against disease and mortality. Originally constructed in 1910 as a two-story wooden structure, the facility quickly outgrew its modest beginnings due to the rampant spread of tuberculosis, then known as consumption. By 1926, a sprawling five-story brick building had replaced the original structure, designed to house hundreds of patients seeking treatment for the highly infectious respiratory illness. What began as a beacon of hope soon descended into a labyrinth of despair, earning the hospital its reputation as one of the most haunted places in America. During its operational years, Waverly Hills employed cutting-edge treatments for tuberculosis, including pneumothorax, collapsing part of the lung, thoracoplasty, removing ribs to allow the lungs to rest, and even gold injections. All experimental procedures that offered little relief and often caused further suffering. Patients endured prolonged isolation, subjected to harsh conditions and invasive surgeries without modern anesthesia or pain management. Historical records reveal an alarming number of fatalities, exacerbated by overcrowding, poor sanitation, and limited understanding of the disease. Many died alone, their bodies carried away via the infamous death tunnel, a chute leading down the hillside to waiting hearses below. Locals whispered about the sheer volume of coffins emerging from the hospital, fueling rumors that Waverly Hills was less a place of healing and more a factory of death. As if the physical toll weren't enough, allegations of unethical practices soon surfaced. Former employees have spoken in hushed tones about secret labs hidden deep within the hospital's basement, where doctors tested dubious drugs and surgical techniques without proper consent. One particularly disturbing account involves a group of children admitted for minor illnesses who mysteriously disappeared after being transferred to a restricted wing. Their families never received closure. Official reports claimed they had succumbed to complications, yet no death certificates were issued, and no bodies were ever returned for burial. Tragedy struck repeatedly throughout the hospital's operational years. Fires broke out multiple times due to faulty wiring and inadequate safety measures, claiming dozens of lives. In one devastating incident in 1934, an entire ward burned to the ground overnight, trapping patients inside. Survivors recalled hearing screams so piercing they echoed through the surrounding woods for days afterward. Other accidents included boiler explosions, elevator malfunctions, and structural collapses, all contributing to a mounting body count that locals whispered about in fearful tones. Over time, the abandoned hospital became synonymous with fear, a place where the living dared not tread and the dead refused to leave. By the mid-20th century, public outcry over the hospital's practices led to investigations by state authorities. What they uncovered was horrifying: rooms filled with rusted restraints, medical equipment encrusted with dried blood, and files documenting cases of systemic corruption. The facility was shut down in 1961, leaving behind a shell of a once promising institution. However, closing its doors did little to silence the horrors that had unfolded within. Locals reported seeing strange lights flickering in the upper windows long after the power had been cut off. Others claimed to hear moans and wails drifting through the trees late at night. Over time, the abandoned hospital became synonymous with fear, a place where the living dared not tread and the dead refused to leave. Today, standing amidst the ruins of this once thriving medical center, one cannot help but feel the weight of its tragic past. Every cracked tile, every peeling wall, tells a story of suffering endured and lives lost. As we move deeper into our investigation, remember that the ghosts haunting these halls are not mere figments of imagination. They are echoes of real people whose pain continues to reverberate through time. And if you listen closely, you may just hear their pleas for justice still lingering in the shadows. Ward 3A, where shadows stalk and whispers echo among the countless chilling stories tied to Waverly Hills Sanatorium, none evoke as much dread as those centered around Ward 3A. Known colloquially among former staff and paranormal enthusiasts as the Wailing Ward, this particular section of the second floor has become infamous for its relentless supernatural activity. According to historical records, Ward 3A housed patients suffering from severe mental illnesses, many of whom were subjected to inhumane treatments such as lobotomies and prolonged isolation. It is here that some of the hospital's darkest deeds were carried out, and where the spirits of its victims remain trapped, forever reliving their torment. One of the most harrowing accounts comes from Sarah Thompson, a retired nurse who worked at the hospital in the 1950s. In a trembling voice, she recounts how she was assigned to assist Dr. Harold Langston, a controversial figure known for his aggressive approach to treating psychiatric disorders. On her first night shift in Ward 3A, Sarah noticed something odd about room 312, a cramped, windowless space used to confine unruly patients. As she passed by, she heard faint sobbing emanating from behind the door. Assuming it was one of the patients, she entered cautiously, only to find the room empty. The crying continued, growing louder and more desperate, until it seemed to surround her. Panicked, Sarah fled the ward, refusing to return despite threats of disciplinary action. Sarah's experience is far from unique. Decades later, paranormal investigators armed with EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, recorders captured chilling audio evidence within the same room. Among the static-filled recordings are distinct phrases like, "Let me go," and "They're coming," delivered in anguished tones. One investigator described feeling an overwhelming sense of claustrophobia while standing near the bed frame, as though invisible hands were pressing down on him. Another team member reported seeing shadowy figures darting across the corners of her vision, always just out of reach. The spectral presence in Ward 3A isn't limited to auditory phenomena or fleeting glimpses. Visitors have described encountering full-bodied apparitions, their translucent forms clad in tattered hospital gowns. One of the most frequently cited entities is believed to be a young woman named Emily Carter, a patient admitted in the 1940s after attempting suicide following the loss of her child. Witnesses claim to see her wandering the corridor outside room 312, her hollow eyes fixed on some unseen point in the distance. Occasionally, she approaches passers-by, extending a trembling hand before vanishing without explanation. Those who have interacted with her report feeling an icy chill and smelling the faint scent of antiseptic, as though she carries remnants of her final days with her. Perhaps the most unsettling feature of Ward 3A is the recurring sound of footsteps pacing endlessly along its tiled floors. Staff members working night shifts prior to the hospital's closure swore they could hear heavy boots stomping up and down the hallway, accompanied by the jangle of keys and muffled curses. Attempts to locate the source invariably failed, as the noise seemed to originate from multiple directions simultaneously. Adding to the ward's sinister reputation are the numerous reports of objects moving independently. During one investigation, a flashlight inexplicably rolled off a table and landed directly at the feet of a startled participant. Another group discovered a wheelchair positioned against a closed door moments after leaving it parked several feet away. These incidents, coupled with sudden drops in temperature and inexplicable EMF spikes, suggest that Ward 3A harbors intelligent entities capable of interacting with the physical world. Despite, or perhaps because of, its terrifying reputation, Ward 3A remains a focal point for paranormal activity within the hospital. Its oppressive atmosphere draws thrill seekers and skeptics alike, all eager to test their courage against the unknown. For those brave enough to venture inside, the promise of encountering one of its tormented spirits offers both fascination and terror. Yet, as each new visitor crosses its threshold, they must ask themselves, are they prepared to face what lies beyond the veil? The Forgotten Basement, a descent into darkness beneath the crumbling foundations of Waverly Hills Sanatorium, lies a realm shrouded in perpetual gloom, the Forgotten Basement. This subterranean labyrinth, rarely mentioned in official records and almost entirely inaccessible to the public, serves as a grim testament to the hospital's darkest secrets. Once home to clandestine experiments, makeshift morgues, and storage for discarded medical equipment, the basement now exists as a tomb of horrors, its air thick with decay and despair. Here, the boundaries between life and death blur, and the spirits of those who suffered unimaginable fates continue to roam, their anguish etched into every shadowy corner point. One of the most notorious areas of the basement is the dissection lab, a cold, sterile room where bodies were dissected under the guise of scientific inquiry. Former employees have whispered about unauthorized autopsies performed on patients who had not yet succumbed to their illnesses, their organs harvested for dubious research purposes. The walls of the lab are lined with rusted steel tables, some still bearing stains that refuse to fade, no matter how many years pass. Visitors to the basement report hearing the faint scrape of scalpels against bone, followed by guttural groans that seem to emanate from the very walls themselves. One investigator claimed to see a pale, translucent figure lying prone on one of the tables, its chest cavity splayed open as though mid-procedure, before it dissolved into thin air. Adjacent to the dissection lab lies the morgue, a chilling expanse of concrete and metal where the dead awaited identification or disposal. Rows of rusted drawers line the walls, their handles worn smooth by countless openings and closings. Paranormal teams exploring the space have captured EVP recordings of mournful voices pleading, "Find me," or "I'm still here." Thermal cameras reveal cold spots concentrated near certain drawers, suggesting the presence of residual energy tied to specific individuals. One particularly disturbing discovery came when a drawer that refused to close was forced shut, prompting a blood-curdling scream to echo through the chamber, causing the entire team to flee in terror. Further into the depths of the basement sits the boiler room, a cavernous space dominated by towering machinery now silent and covered in grime. This area earned infamy during the hospital's operational years due to a series of catastrophic boiler explosions that claimed numerous lives. Survivors spoke of infernos engulfing the lower levels, trapping workers and patients alike in a fiery hell. Today, those who dare to enter the boiler room describe feeling waves of intense heat wash over them, even though the boilers have long ceased functioning. Ghostly figures resembling scorched victims are said to wander aimlessly, their charred faces twisted in eternal agony. Some visitors swear they can smell smoke and hear the crackle of flames, as though the fires rage on in some parallel dimension. Another spine-chilling aspect of the basement is the network of tunnels connecting various sections of the hospital. Originally designed for transporting supplies and bodies discreetly, these narrow passageways have become breeding grounds for paranoia and dread. Explorers navigating the tunnels often report hearing footsteps trailing behind them, only to turn and find no one there. Others claim to see glowing eyes peering from the darkness, watching silently before vanishing without a sound. A particularly unnerving encounter occurred when a group of urban explorers became disoriented and found themselves walking in circles, unable to locate the exit. Panic set in as the temperature plummeted, and disembodied whispers urged them to stay with us. The basement also houses remnants of forgotten experiments, including cages and restraint devices that hint at the atrocities committed below ground. One alcove contains a collection of rusted iron chairs bolted to the floor, their armrests fitted with leather straps. Investigators believe these were used to restrain unwilling participants in unethical trials. Voices recorded in this area include fragmented phrases like, "No more tests," and "Please, I can't breathe," delivered in tones of sheer desperation. Some claim to feel invisible hands gripping their wrists or ankles, mimicking the sensation of being bound, while others report seeing shadowy figures strapped into the chairs, writhing in silent protest. Despite, or perhaps because of, its ominous reputation, the basement continues to draw curious souls eager to confront its malevolent energies. Urban explorers, paranormal investigators, and thrill-seekers descend into its bowels, armed with cameras, recording devices, and nerves of steel. Yet few emerge unscathed, their minds imprinted with visions and sensations too vivid to dismiss as mere imagination. As each new adventurer steps into the abyss, they must grapple with the knowledge that what awaits them may be more than they bargained for, a descent into madness, memory, and the unrelenting grip of the past. The surgeon's legacy, Dr. Evelyn Hargrove, and the phantom scalpel. Few names evoke as much dread in the annals of Waverly Hills Sanatorium as Dr. Evelyn Hargrove. A brilliant yet deeply troubled physician, Hargrove rose to prominence in the 1930s as a pioneer of experimental surgical techniques. Her groundbreaking work initially garnered praise, but her insatiable ambition and disregard for ethical boundaries soon cast a shadow over her achievements. By the time her reign of terror ended, she had left behind a legacy of pain, betrayal, and spectral vengeance that continues to haunt the hospital's operating theaters to this day. Dr. Hargrove's career began with promise. Appointed head surgeon at the age of 32, she quickly gained a reputation for her innovative approaches to treating complex conditions. However, her methods grew increasingly radical, pushing the limits of accepted medical practice. Colleagues whispered about unauthorized procedures performed under the guise of routine surgeries, including organ removals without patient consent and invasive brain operations intended to cure mental illnesses. Rumors swirled that Hargrove kept meticulous journals detailing her experiments, though these documents mysteriously vanished after her death, fueling speculation about the true extent of her transgressions. One of the most chilling aspects of Hargrove's story is her alleged obsession with perfection. Former nurses recall her scrutinizing patients' charts late into the night, muttering cryptic phrases like "fix it" and "make them whole again." Those who questioned her motives or challenged her authority often found themselves reassigned to less desirable positions, or worse, disappeared altogether. One nurse recounted finding cryptic messages scrawled on the walls of an abandoned wing. "Help me, they're coming," and "I'm sorry." She quit her job the next day, unable to shake the feeling that she was being watched. Hargrove's downfall came in 1948, when a fire swept through the surgical wing, killing several staff members and patients. While the official report blamed faulty wiring, survivors whispered of seeing Hargrove fleeing the scene moments before the blaze erupted. Some even suggested she deliberately set the fire to cover up evidence of her crimes. Whatever the truth, Hargrove vanished without a trace, leaving behind only unanswered questions and a trail of destruction. Months later, her body was discovered in a remote section of the hospital basement, slumped against a rusted gurney. Cause of death was ruled a self-inflicted stab wound to the abdomen, though the scalpel clutched in her hand bore no fingerprints. Since then, sightings of Dr. Evelyn Hargrove's ghost have become a staple of the hospital's haunted lore. Witnesses describe a tall, gaunt figure clad in a blood-stained surgical gown, her face obscured by a surgical mask. She is often seen prowling the operating rooms, her movements deliberate and mechanical, as though still performing phantom surgeries. One nurse working a late shift swore she felt icy breath on her neck, followed by the sensation of cold metal grazing her skin. Turning around, she saw Hargrove standing inches away, her eyes gleaming with manic intensity before she vanished into thin air. Paranormal investigators exploring the surgical wing have captured compelling evidence of Hargrove's lingering presence. Thermal imaging cameras reveal significant temperature drops near operating tables, accompanied by inexplicable EMF spikes. Audio recordings picked up during overnight sessions include faint whispers chanting medical terms like incision and clamp, interspersed with agonized cries. Perhaps the most disturbing discovery came when a team member accidentally activated an old overhead light fixture, illuminating the room just long enough to reveal a transparent figure hovering above the operating table, scalpel poised midair. Modern-day encounters with Hargrove's spirit suggest her obsession with perfection endures beyond the grave. Visitors have reported hearing the sound of surgical instruments clinking together, followed by the unmistakable squelch of flesh being cut. Some claim to see shadowy appendages extending from the ceiling, manipulating invisible tools with surgical precision. Others describe waking up in nearby recovery rooms to find their skin marked with faint red lines, as though traced by a phantom scalpel. One particularly harrowing account involves a maintenance worker who swore he saw his own reflection in a stainless steel tray, only to realize the image staring back at him was missing vital organs. Despite, or perhaps because of, her malevolent reputation, Dr. Evelyn Hargrove remains one of the hospital's most active spirits. Her presence looms large over the surgical wing, a constant reminder of the horrors inflicted in pursuit of flawed ideals. For those brave enough to step inside, the possibility of encountering her restless spirit adds an element of both fascination and dread. Yet, as each new visitor crosses the threshold, they must ask themselves, are they prepared to confront the consequences of Hargrove's hubris? Or will they become another victim of her unrelenting quest for perfection? Patterns across haunted hospitals, themes of tragedy and resilience as we traverse the haunted landscapes of America's most infamous hospitals. From the blood-soaked wards of Waverly Hills to the somber basements of other institutions, striking similarities emerge that transcend individual locations and histories. These patterns are not merely coincidental but reflect universal themes of human emotion, unresolved trauma, and the enduring power of memory. From the wailing wards of sanatoriums to the shadowed basements of courtrooms, these sites share a commonality that binds them together in a spectral sisterhood of sorrow and suspense. One recurring motif is the concept of unfinished business. Whether it's the victims of unethical experiments, or the betrayed trust of patients subjected to inhumane treatments, these spirits seem tethered to the earthly realm by grievances left unaddressed. Their presence manifests as restless energy, often communicated through auditory phenomena, cries, whispers, or disembodied voices, that serve as pleas for acknowledgement or closure. This theme resonates across cultures and belief systems, reflecting humanity's innate need to resolve conflict and seek peace, even in death. Another shared characteristic is the role of architecture in amplifying paranormal activity. Historic buildings, with their labyrinthine corridors, thick walls, and hidden alcoves, create environments conducive to isolating individuals and heightening fear. These structural elements act as metaphors for the psychological barriers erected by those who suffered within their confines, trapping emotions such as anger, despair, and regret. It's no coincidence that many reported hauntings occur in spaces imbued with emotional significance: operating rooms where surgeries went awry, basements where bodies were stored, or wards where patients met tragic ends. Lighting and sensory manipulation also feature prominently in these narratives. Flickering lights, sudden temperature drops, and inexplicable odors are staples of ghostly encounters, designed to disorient and unsettle. Such phenomena strip away the comfort of familiarity, forcing guests to confront the unknown. The use of mirrors, a recurring element in stories from various haunted hospitals, adds another layer of psychological tension, as reflections distort perception and blur the boundary between self and other. This interplay of light and shadow becomes a tool wielded by unseen forces, creating moments of visceral terror that linger long after the initial shock subsides. Finally, the prevalence of historical context cannot be overstated. Each location's haunting is deeply rooted in its unique past, shaped by the socio-cultural milieu of its time. The brutal medical practices embedded in the DNA of older establishments contrast sharply with the glamorous yet tragic lives immortalized in urban legends. Yet, both narratives tap into broader archetypes of ambition, betrayal, and mortality, ensuring their resonance with audiences regardless of personal experience. By drawing on these universal motifs, these haunted places transform from mere buildings into living repositories of collective memory, inviting us to peer into the abyss of our shared humanity. Thus, while each establishment boasts its own distinct flavor of fright, the underlying threads connecting them reveal a tapestry rich with meaning. These patterns remind us that the supernatural is not so much about the entities themselves but the stories they tell, the echoes of lives interrupted, passions extinguished, and truths obscured. As we continue to explore these haunted locales, we find ourselves grappling not only with the specters of the past but with the timeless questions they raise about life, death, and everything in between. The psychology of fear. Why haunted hospitals captivate us? What is it about haunted hospitals that grips our imaginations so profoundly? Beyond the creaking floorboards and flickering lights lies a deeper allure, one rooted in the psychology of fear and the human fascination with the unknown. Hospitals, by their very nature, are places of vulnerability. They are where we confront our mortality, stripped of autonomy and control, relying entirely on the expertise of others to heal us. When these spaces become haunted, they amplify our primal fears, transforming familiar settings into arenas of existential dread. The combination of medical history, architectural design, and the lingering presence of past suffering creates a perfect storm of terror that resonates deeply within us. At the core of this captivation is the concept of liminality, the state of being on the threshold between two worlds. Hospitals exist in this liminal space, bridging life and death, health and illness, hope and despair. This inherent duality makes them fertile ground for supernatural narratives. Ghosts, as manifestations of unresolved trauma or unfinished business, embody the tension of being caught between states. They serve as reminders that the boundaries we construct, between life and afterlife, sanity and madness, are far more permeable than we'd like to believe. For many, visiting a haunted site feels like stepping into a twilight zone where the rules of reality no longer apply, igniting both curiosity and unease. Architecturally, hospitals contribute to this atmosphere of dread through their design. Long, sterile hallways lined with identical doors create a sense of disorientation, while poor lighting and echoing acoustics heighten sensory awareness. These features mimic the psychological effects of anxiety and claustrophobia, making even mundane sounds, a distant cough, the hum of fluorescent lights, feel ominous. The labyrinthine layouts of older structures, with their hidden wings and underground tunnels, evoke feelings of entrapment and uncertainty. Every corner becomes a potential threat, every shadow a possible harbinger of danger. This environmental manipulation taps into our instinctual fight-or-flight response, keeping us perpetually on edge. Cultural influences also play a significant role in shaping our fascination with haunted hospitals. Media representations, from films like Session 9 to television series such as American Horror Story, Asylum, have cemented the trope of the haunted asylum or hospital as a locus of horror. These portrayals often blend historical truths with fictional embellishments, creating a mythology that blurs fact and fiction. Audiences are drawn to these stories because they reflect societal anxieties about institutional power, systemic injustice, and the fragility of the human mind. Haunted hospitals become microcosms of larger fears, the loss of agency, the misuse of authority, and the haunting specter of mistakes made in the name of progress. But why stop here? If these accounts have stirred something within you, a spark of curiosity, a shiver of excitement, I urge you to take the next step. Visit one of America's most haunted hospitals yourself. Walk the same halls where spirits are said to roam, stand in the rooms where history's echoes reverberate, and let the unknown brush against your senses. Whether you're a skeptic seeking proof or a believer eager to commune with the other side, these forsaken institutions offer an unparalleled opportunity to confront the mysteries that lie just beyond comprehension. There's nothing quite like experiencing the weight of decades-old despair firsthand, feeling the chill of a presence that defies explanation, or hearing the faint strains of voices from another time. And when you return, share your story. Did you feel the icy touch of a ghostly hand? Hear the faint tap of footsteps in an empty corridor? Or perhaps nothing happened at all. But isn't that silence just as intriguing? Your experiences add to the rich tapestry of lore surrounding these haunted places, ensuring their legacies endure for generations to come. Share your findings with fellow enthusiasts, document your journey,